You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Hi, welcome to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast here on the BQN. We're here to showcase the films you probably missed but should definitely check out. From independent and obscure to art house, absurd and possibly Australian, each episode will gather, perhaps cocktail in hand, to discuss it all. I am your host for today, Davey, and with me are the stunningly handsome Matt and Mark. Gentlemen, hello.
Oh, you sweet talker. I bet you say that to all the girls.
You notice he said the stunningly handsome Matt. Oh, and Mark.
It was a collective, stunningly handsome.
Sure.
We were there together.
Yeah. So, what are we drinking today, girls? What have we got?
Oh, Lord. So, listeners at this point are probably getting bored because I think I've done this drink a few times. But I wanted something fruity, something colorful, something gay as fuck. So, I made myself a lovely Mai Tai today.
Oh, that sounds good. Is that something that you can order regularly at a bar, or is that just something that the bartender needs special?
They should be able to make it. I mean,
it's a classic. Yeah,
you got your white rum. It's like white rum or coconut rum.
Yeah.
And then your dark rum, spiced rum, and then usually it is pineapple juice, orange juice, grenadine. Woo!
And they have to make that sound too when they're.
Yeah. Sometimes they put a cherry on top.
Or a little slice of pineapple.
Yeah, a little slice of pineapple.
Listeners, today, because I have to drive after we do this podcast, I also don't really have anything in terms of booze in the refrigerator, so I'm drinking the last of my peppermint vodka.
Ooh,
and it's
what's that like?
It's hold on, here we go. It's very pepperminty.
That's on theme, actually, because there is a drag queen named Peppermint.
That's true.
Therein?
And we love peppermint. I love peppermint. Peppermint is so sweet.
I know. I got to see her in New York, just after she was on Drag Race, and I was a big fan. So super cute. Well, as always, listeners, to anyone who ever hears me on any podcast, it's usually the morning when I am recording. It's 10 a.m. on Good Friday for me. So I have got my trusty coffee in my Donald Duck mug. Yeah. I mean, it's the long weekend. I probably could have put some vodka or made an espresso martini, but apparently I've got to go do wedding planning after we finished recording. So we'll stick to coffee.
No fun.
So tell me, my loves, what have we been watching lately? Before we dive into today's film, what have we been watching? I'll start with you, Matt.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I saw 2 movies in the last 2 weeks. I saw Muffins, I'm going to mess up the title. It's Magical Negro Society of Magical Negroes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I think it's, it just says a lot about just microaggressions that Black people experience, a lot of the things that Black people do just for the sake of safety and self-preservation on a daily basis, and it handles it in a very funny, satirical way. I wanted more. I wanted more of the Negro Society, like the magic of the Negro Society. I wanted more of that. I also saw another movie. I can't remember the title right now. Shame on me, but it is about late night TV show host from 1977. I mean, it's fictional, but there's this paranormal activity that takes place during one of the tapings, and it's just about the lost tape of this particular show that he did. And it is so clever because the way that it's filmed and set up is it's filmed like it's the late night show. You are the audience and he's talking to you, and it's you are the audience watching all these paranormal things happen. He had these guests with these special abilities, and it was meant to be a cute, typical late night show, and it just goes wrong, and it gets dark and crazy. And then the moments where you get the behind the scene quote unquote stuff where he's actually talking to his producers or to his co-host in between a commercial break, it's filmed in black and white. And then when we're actually watching the show, it's in, 70s, super saturated, hazy color. It was so good. I can't think of the title right now.
I was going to say, yeah, but
It's really
the title would be great. Yeah.
Title for.
I feel bad. Hold on. Oh man.
Muffins and cakes.
Well, whilst he's looking that up, what's been on your watch list lately, Mark? What's in your queue?
Well, I've been super, super busy, listeners, at the house, as I've mentioned a couple times. So I don't really I love movies. Obviously, this is our movie pod. Like, I am obsessed with movies, but I haven't watched a ton lately. It's been mostly like genre TV. And lately I have watched Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which is based on the film. And Donald Glover stars in that and is amazing. Really enjoying that program. And also there's a show on Apple TV and it's called The New Look. And Andy and I have seen the first couple episodes of that. And it is about sort of the fashion industry in Germany at the time of the Nazi occupation and what that looked like and some of the key players and what they were involved in. And it's really kind of a cool story. It's dark, but also there's fashion. I don't know. It's a weird show, but I recommend it.
Okay, listeners, I did my research. I consulted IMDb. It is called Late Night with the Devil.
Oh,
ooh!
I've had some of those nights.
I encourage you, if you like horror films especially, watch this movie. It was so clever. The cast was everybody was good.
Is there any light bondage in it?
Actually, there is a cult in the movie. So I mean, ish.
A sexy cult.
Little sexy cult.
No, not really. Not really. There's no one that I was attracted to in this movie. However, Priscilla, though, I will say, Guy Pearce got my goat. Got me all tingly in the nethers.
Baby, what have you been watching?
whilst Matt tingles his nethers. So, like you, I've been quite busy. I mean, I saw Dune Part 2 last weekend, but then again, so has everyone.
I haven't.
You haven't seen it?
I can't get a seat. Every time I go to book one, they're sold out because there's a couple of IMAXs nearby, and they've both been sold out. I'm going to try again maybe this weekend I can go, but I haven't had any luck.
Look, I wound up going and seeing it at a regular cinema because there's only one IMAX in Melbourne, and it's impossible to get a ticket to go see it there.
Yeah.
But I've actually been focused on a little bit more live entertainment lately. So I recently went, so there's a new production of Wicked in town. So I went and saw that, and because Anthony's never seen it, it was actually a Christmas present. So we went and did that. And starting this weekend is the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. And I am a huge stand-up comedy fan, and the Melbourne Festival is one of the biggest in the world. So it is a huge time. It goes for about 3 or 4 weeks, and it's so much fun. The city is alive. The whole there's everything from the big theaters to little niche art housey venues, and you can see big international acts, newcomers from all over the world. Tickets ranging from $15 up to $100, depending on who you go to see. But it's just a good time, and I'm going out to my first show tonight with my friend Mitchell. Ooh. We're going to see a show called Mr. Act, which is three local gay guys who are part of a comedy improv group, and they recently did a show at the Melbourne Pride Festival, which is called Midsummer, and was a sellout, apparently. So we think it'll just be good camp fun, whatever it is. I mean, it's 3 gay guys dressed up in nuns' habits on the poster, so what can't be to love?
Wait, you had me.
Sold.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of gay, I think we need to let's dive into a very, very camp film, which we've chosen to watch today. Now, it was my first time choosing a film. And so I wanted to, and I've been talking to you both about this for a while, I wanted to choose an Australian classic for my Northern Hemisphere friends to enjoy. So therefore today, we are discussing one of my all-time favorite films, the 1994 classic, The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. And, anyway, I've written such a long intro for this, and I'm going to read it all because I just love this movie so much. Stephan Elliott directed this film, which tells the story of two drag queens. Now, they all have a few names each, so Mitzi Anthony Tick is one character played by Hugo Weaving, Mitzi being the drag name, Anthony and Tick being given names. We've got Felicia / Adam, played by a very young and attractive Guy Pearce. Mm-hmm. And transgender woman Bernadette, played by Terence Stamp. In the film, Tick has received a call he hoped would never come. His former wife has called in a favour and needs him to perform a few shows at her resort in the Australian Outback town of Alice Springs. Tick enlists the help of Adam and Bernadette, and they set off on a bus ride across the desert. Along the way, we meet an interesting mix of rural characters who react favourably and not so favourably to the drag queens and what they represent. The film was groundbreaking for its time, and it explores themes of homophobia, reactions to the AIDS epidemic, and the concepts of the found families that many in the queer community find themselves in. Most importantly, it represents its characters in an authentic way that gives audiences an important view into the lives of the queer community in a way that humanized them in a time when it was very much needed. It's not without its problems with the modern lens on. However, Priscilla is still a charming and relevant tale of love, friendship, and family. So, I want to start with Matt here, because I know this was your first ever time watching Priscilla, and I've been dying to hear your reactions. What has been your initial reaction to your first watch? What have you taken away from it?
So, number one, I have my movies that I go to just for feel good and for a good time. And I think this is going to be added to that list. I fell in love with this movie. I fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with the banter that they have. Obviously, I fell in love with Guy Pearce. It is nice to see a movie, I think especially in 1994, that talks about the queer experience, but it's not tied to tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
It is just, there are moments where, there's some moments of heaviness where we explore the reality of what it is like to be a queer person in the queer community in a straight world. But those moments are kind of like, bloop, there it is. But let's get back to fun, because it's not always doom and gloom. And, and it was handled in a way that I think was appropriate to the comedic tone of this movie, but also in a way that it wasn't so jarring that it was like a tonal shift that was so sharp that it just didn't make sense. So I appreciate the levity and the celebration, I think, as well, which is something that I really took to heart and really liked about this movie, that it was a celebration of a certain aspect of the queer experience. So all around really good. And again, Guy Pearce. We'll just
call him Twinkie Pearce from now on.
Yes, Twinkie Pearce.
Now, Mark, I know you were, and I think you were kind of hoping this would be the one I would choose. Every time I dropped names of different Aussie films, you were like, yeah, but what about Priscilla? So how did you find doing a fresh rewatch?
Oh, it's about time I did a revisit of this one. This one's really special to me as well. I think I shared it with both of you guys, but I'll share with the listeners. I was in probably middle school and was with, I think it was either our band or our choir was going down from northern Maine. We were taking a long bus trip to Manhattan to go and perform there as part of like a festival or something. So that was really exciting. But on the way down, they put on different movies for the passengers of the bus, because it was one of those big coaches. And one of the movies they put on for us kids was this Australian film, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Wait, what?
There are some scenes in this which are not great for kids.
Yes. So we're talking about a bus load of probably like 10, 12, 13-year-olds
Wow.
that
Oh my
are from
god.
northern rural Maine farming community and woods, where this is the choice. And as you know, a young queer person that didn't know any queer people at all, I was shocked and delighted, to say the least. It might have been, you know what? I'm going to be honest, David. This might have been the first time I ever saw a drag queen. So
Interesting.
it was probably this film, and I remember a few things about it. I remember a little bit what Matt was talking about. I remember the optimism. I remembered the fun. I remembered the banter. I remembered the found family elements. I remembered the unabashed pride that they had in what they were doing. And they weren't, I guess, shamed into, being in the closet. They were out there dressed to the nines, living their best lives. And that was a big takeaway for me. I was a young, impressionable kid, and I was just like, wow, like here is an example, because I'd been told before that, gay people were people to stay away from and loathe and all this other thing, that they were bad. And so to see this positive example of them made me feel a little safer in the world and a little less alone in the world. And it was really great that I got to experience now. Now, after the bus trip, I think the school wasn't allowed to use that line anymore. Like, I'm not even kidding. There was all kinds of parents up in arms, letters written. Someone might even lost a job. But I don't know. It was, I thought it was great.
You didn't get off the bus and tell one of your teachers to light their tampon and blow their box apart or something like that.
I wouldn't have known what that even meant at the time. So no.
You know what, like you, Mark, this would have been my first exposure to drag queens as well. Now, this film has been so special to me throughout my entire life for so many different reasons. And it is a movie that reveals more of itself to me no matter how old it gets and no matter how many times I watch it. I remember seeing it on VHS when it first came out because my two older sisters loved it, and they would hire it out and watch it over and over and over again. And I remember watching it because I would have been in probably like 5th or 6th grade, around about that time. And it didn't even enter my head that these were queer characters. These were just fun performers who dressed up in women's clothes and did songs. And that was all. And I remember watching one of the first scenes I ever watched was actually the final performance in the casino in Alice Springs. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is really, really cool. And it wasn't until I was older and out that I watched it again, and it all made sense to me, especially because when I finally watched it as an adult, I was living in Sydney, and the Imperial Hotel, which is the the pub they work at the beginning and the end of the film, was my local. It was yes, and it was where I went and got my first ever exposure to actual real life drag. And there was a drag queen there who was the kind of the head queen on a Saturday night. Her name was Mitzi McIntosh. I remember her. She used to do a bingo and all kinds of stuff. And it was just this like big queer awakening because I'd come from the coastal country town, moved to the big city, and watched the film, went to the pub every weekend that it was made at, saw drag queens, and yeah, so there's a special place in my heart for those reasons. And just because it is such an authentic view of queer life, and it's a very authentic view of Australian queer life in the 90s and still has some relevance today, but I think there is relatability in terms of all kinds of minorities across the world, which I think is why it was such an international success. And I love that it's it's one of the most successful Australian films of all times, and it's about a pack of drag queens on a bus in the desert. So there's just so much about it, and I can quote it back to front. I barely needed to look up the screenplay to write our sections later on, where we're going to reenact a few scenes. So look, yeah, Love, love, love. Yeah. With that, though, I think you need to you do need to look at the film and think, well, it is a bit of a product of its time. Many of its themes, characters, and messages, whilst they do remain relevant today, as I was just saying, there are some elements which, and you get this with a lot of movies that were groundbreaking for their time. There are some problematic elements when you put a modern lens on it. And particularly if you look at the cast, comprised entirely of straight white men playing queer characters. And even though Weaving, Pearce, and Stamp give absolutely stunning performances,
phenomenal,
it would be exactly right, but it would be frowned upon if this movie was made today and those roles were given to straight men. It would be very, very frowned upon.
I want to pause for a second, or interject rather. That is true, and you're right, Davey. People would be up in arms about it. However, I have to kind of take the other side of the coin there, because I disagree. As an actor, your job is to portray other people, not yourself, right? I wouldn't exactly want to see a white actor playing Martin Luther King Jr. or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But with that said, I think that it is a disservice to the acting community if only gay people can play gay characters and only straight people can play straight characters. It limits both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
So
I do agree. Yeah.
That's sort of a non-issue because, if you watch Will and Grace, obviously the guy that played Jack was gay, playing a gay character, but the guy playing Will was a straight actor who did a phenomenal job and represented a different kind of gay man. So I feel like I disagree with the culture in that regard. You're right. The culture would be up in arms right now about it, but I don't think it should be. I just have a problem with that.
Yeah, and more to the point, or a point I kind of wanted to make in follow-up to this as well, a film like this made at that time, there probably weren't enough safe, open, queer actors to kind of take these roles anyway. And there's an importance to this movie because there were films like this made back then at a time when it would have been very challenging to do so. It's probably actually opened up the door for queer actors and creatives to be open and visible, right? This was a level of visibility that just didn't really exist in film at the time. And would there have been enough kind of openly queer actors around to kind of even take those roles? Who knows? But you're absolutely right. Like there's a balance, right? We've got a fabulous culture where there's plenty of queer roles for queer actors to sink their teeth into, but it doesn't necessarily have to be all doom and gloom if it's not if it's not a queer actor. But yeah, look, and there's some other elements too where Felicia uses Bernadette's dead name quite frequently as a joke to annoy her, which is quite unacceptable in the trans community. Even in the Queer as Folk remake, when one of the characters uses the dead name of Jesse James Keitel's character, it gets beeped out as if though they've sworn, because it's that unacceptable. But it wasn't a concept that was widely known at the time, but it's used as a bit of a joke in this, right? Like, even though you can see how upset Bernadette is, you might not see that that would be very frowned upon if it were written into a film today. So I guess the question here, did you notice any other examples or elements that may not make it into a modern day remake of Priscilla? Or can you think of other films that were maybe groundbreaking for their time and contain kind of similar problematic elements when you apply a modern lens to them?
I think that, oh God, I can't remember his name, but he ends up with the transgender character at the end.
Bob, yeah.
And his I guess wife, or
yes, he's Thai bride, yes.
Yeah, like there's that.
She was Filipino.
Was she? Okay.
Because the subtitles said, was it Tagalog? And that's the Filipino language.
Okay, yeah.
I dated a Filipino guy for a while, so that's the only reason I picked up on it.
Yeah. It's just there. I mean, there was that stereotype element
portrayal.
to the character that was in there.
Oh, very much so. Bringing that up, that there's not much about this movie really that I would change. I agree with most of it. That if I was remaking it today, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. That was a little too racist.
It was, yeah. I mean, and I think the only thing that I would have is just more queer people of color in the cast. That's all. That's it. But everything else is, yeah,
and you get that with a lot of queer films and TV shows. Like they even talk about like Will and Grace was very important, but contained nothing but white people.
Yeah.
What I did like was they did include, there was Aboriginal representation in this film as well.
Yes.
Which was done in a way which was really quite positive, which was again kind of unusual for the time. Like those characters that show up, they help them, they have a fun, and out of everywhere they go on that rural journey, so Broken Hill, Cooper Pedy, the two towns where, they write the awful slur on the bus, and then when, they have the unfortunate issue after Felicia does drugs, when they wind up performing with the Aboriginal community, they're fine. It's this really wonderful, cute little scene, which, I think was very, very cleverly done, and also probably calling out as well that the Indigenous community in Australia has actually had queer and trans people part of their culture for quite some time. They have a concept of brother boys and sister girls, which is kind of how they describe queer and trans people, and they've been part of their community forever. So that was a nice little moment.
I texted you guys when that scene came up because it struck me that just beforehand, Bernadette had gone out into the desert and she had found some people to help to get the bus unstuck or whatever.
Yeah.
And they rode back on the Jeep. They made her sit with the dead carcass of the animal or whatever, and they rode back. But they get there and they realize, oh, wait, these are gay people. These are trans people. We didn't realize that. Oh, we don't actually want to help you. And they left them stranded for dead in the middle of the desert. Like they could have died. Like they were in the middle of the desert, away from humanity, left for dead. And the Aboriginal people were actually the saviors of the drag queen in this movie. So it was the people of color, it was the Aboriginal people that came in, swooped in, and saved these people. And I thought that was a cool twist.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's always these older films that, you can kind of pick it and go, oh, maybe that wouldn't be done today. And I don't want to dwell too much on that because it is absolutely still 100% one of my favorite films of all time. And, some of those problematic things I maybe giggle a little bit at when But despite some of those
the
problems...
ping pongs. The ping pong balls.
Hey, I did tell you this before recording, but listeners, I have in my hands, so there is a Priscilla musical which started in Australia in the mid-2000s, and during the ping pong scene, if you've seen the film and you know it, she spreads her legs and a whole bunch of ping pongs get thrown at the stage. I have one of those ping pongs from the Priscilla musical. It's original run in Sydney. And there's a little disclaimer on it that says for external use only.
Now, David, did you sanitize it? Did you sanitize it and clean it after picking it up off the ground?
Oh no, it's like Felicia's ABBA turd. I have done. I've kept it exactly.
Wow.
Oh God, I saw that and I had to pause and I said, "It's not. It's not. No, it's not. No, it's not." I was in denial.
Did you picture it happening? Because I did in my head. I was like, I could see Guy Pearce bending over with a little thing, scooping it out, and I was like, I wish I didn't have that image. I really wish I didn't.
God.
But they painted the picture for me.
Oh.
Now, look, despite all that, I think you've really got to admire what an important cultural touchstone this film is for 1994, right? Like we're talking about coming out of the AIDS epidemic, and as you even see in the film, like there's still that connotation that these are gay people, they must have AIDS, right? When they write the AIDS thing on the side of the bus in Broken Hill. But, you know, it was rare to find something so mainstream that put queer characters front and center like this and provided such a... It resonated so well with every single audience, you know, queer or straight or whatever. And it didn't have to sanitize anything too much. And especially, like, you consider its cult success and the ton of awards it won, from Oscars to BAFTAs to Golden Globes. But despite all this, it almost did not get made. The film's creators had to fight tooth and nail to get it funded by the Australian Film Finance Corporation, which, if you look it up, I think it was made on a budget of about $1.8 million. Like, it was made on a shoestring.
That's nothing.
Yeah. I mean, that's 1.8 million at the time, right? But, you know, still, that's adjusted to inflation. That's still not a lot for a film, and it grossed at the box office about 30 million. So that's pretty impressive, right? Mm-hmm. So, why do you think films like this are so important? And do you think there are still struggles in having queer content made for all audiences? I've said mainstream audiences here, but I think all audiences that authentically depicts who we are.
I always have gravitated towards queer cinema because I didn't know queer people when I was younger. So it was like, this is how my window into that particular world. And there are very, very few movies that I feel like get it. There's a lot of, you know, queer films with varying degrees of success. But as far as relatability, to my personal experience, to I feel like the average everyday queer person, I feel like there hasn't been a lot made. I want to give a shout out, if I can, to Moonlight by Barry Jenkins. It won, you know, the Oscars a few years back. That was one of the few movies I feel like that have come out in the last few years that authentically told a queer story, and I could relate to it. And I thought that was really good. But the fact that there hasn't been that many means I think that we still have a ways to go, and definitely a lot more stories to tell.
Yeah, I can say it's so important that we have these stories told, and that we, I think, increase the amount of these stories that are being told. You know, I'm in a city where it's now, for lack of better words, it's now illegal to hang the pride flag on a government building. There's also like some kind of loophole where it's also illegal to hang the Christian flag on a government building as well. I think only the American flag can be hung, but it's you notice you notice the things that are going on. I mean, we've in America especially, we've got people that are protesting, you know, the drag hour where drag queens read to kids.
Oh, the story time. Yeah.
You know, we have people, and this has been on my mind so much, and it bothers me, but we've got these conservatives, these Christians, whatever they are. We've got these people that think that drag queens are out there to touch your children. You know, that think queer people are out there to get your kids. I don't want your child.
I want your child to feel safe. I want your child to know that they're special and they're okay, and they're going to grow up fine for feeling the way that they feel, you know, and being who they are. Like, that's what I want. And I think that's what a lot of gay people want, you know.
And I think the thing is that these stories are so essential to the education of kids, of adults as well. So we don't have people growing up with that kind of mentality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we have kids, we have adults that understand and get a better view of the world that they are living in, and understand the people that they are living with, and that those people are not going anywhere.
The highest percentage of suicides, at least in the United States, is out of the queer community, and it has been for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's not lost on me that you'll hear about a scandal coming out about a Republican senator, Republican official, and when it comes out that it's been about child molestation or sexual exploitation. It's just you find out that these people are also the people that are actively trying to erase queer people
Didn't they
from the
elect
United
that guy
States.
down in the South? Was it Florida? It might have been Florida that was actually convicted child molester, and he ran on the Republican ticket, and I think he got elected or was like close. And I'm like, this was your guy from the family values like community? What the hell?
So it's like, you have to, I mean, search yourself. Please search yourself before you try to attack someone else. I know I went off on another tangent, but I say all that to say to your question, Davey. Yes, we have to tell these stories. Exposure is so important.
The exposure and the visibility part is really, really important. And I keep coming back to this. I love the window into the queer community that this film made. And I there's been a lot of other great films that have been made in a similar regards, but just something that I don't know if any other movies have done quite the job that this did of just humanizing queer people in a way that resonated with everyone. Everyone I've known who's seen this film, gay, straight, whatever your background has felt Bernadette's pain at the loss of a partner and being really enamored by the love story of falling in love with Bob and has, kind of felt like terrified at Felicia almost getting the shit beaten out of her in Cooper Pedy, but then also really rooted for Tick in reuniting with his son. And, look, there are probably a lot of people who then also sort of see that and go, oh, what an awful lifestyle. That child has gone back and had to live in a drag bar. I wish I could have lived in a drag bar.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
Oh my God.
My God.
And even for me, as I was saying before, to have seen this at such a very tender age and a very fragile age in learning my identity, and to just see this and go, this is so different but so beautiful. And I said before, I didn't see it as a gay film. I just saw it as something really beautiful that I don't know why, but it just resonated with me. And I still don't think that there's not always enough out there for younger queer kids to just see that mainstream representation that's not overly cliched or tokenistic in terms of like, hey, here's the funny camp gay character or whatever it may be, right? Like, don't get me wrong, there is some great representation and visibility out there, and we have come so far, but there is a magic sauce to this film that I've never quite put my finger on, that in terms of that window that I keep talking about. But I do think about, I don't know, have any of you ever seen the miniseries on Apple TV, Visibility, that what's his name from Star Trek Discovery was one of the executive producers on?
No.
Wilson Cruz.
Wilson Cruz, yes. I swear I run a Star Trek trivia show. But it's a 5-part
Do I get a point, baby?
I'm not sharing my sound. That is correct.
Yeah.
And I don't think Priscilla shows up in that because it's very Americanized. It's very, visibility on American TV, but it goes through 5-part miniseries, goes through everything from the first ever gay characters on American television right through until today, right through everything from Ellen coming out to how the AIDS epidemic was depicted on American TV to then Will and Grace and the importance of diversity. So I think there's that, what was that show that was on Logo? I think we were talking about it last week. Noah's Ark. Talks about Noah's Ark, talks about Wilson Cruz's first appearance, but just if we're talking so much about visibility for our community, really, really great miniseries to go and watch and see how it's evolved. And yeah, to round that off, I think to Matt's point, just the importance of keeping that front and center, because the world is trying to push back on what we've achieved. Or there are forces in this world trying to push back on our visibility and our acceptance, and us just being out there, being productive members of society, exactly as who we are. So moving on from that, the film has a main plot, which is Tick's or Mitzi's arc to get them all to Alice Springs to do their shows, reunite with his son, and accept his role as a father. However, there are numerous subplots that take center stage more so than this. In fact, I think the subplots are so much richer than just that. It's very satisfying when they get to the end and he meets his son and all that. But the three main characters, like, they're all outsiders due to their sexuality or gender identity, and they're all so similar but so different at the same time. And through these subplots, they all get a beautiful chance to shine. And, the ultimate crescendo of those subplots comes when Adam or Felicia is assaulted by the miners in Cooper Pedy. The follow-up from this is handled with such care by the film's writers and performers and ties everything up nicely and shows the importance of family, friendship, and community in the queer world. The scene where Bernadette comforts Adam, despite having been at each other's throats the entire film, is so touching. The line, "I don't know if that ugly wall of suburbia is meant to keep them out or us in," still gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. So my question to you, my dear friends, is, do you have experiences either with homophobia or some other form of ostracization where a sense of community through your chosen family has really ensured your survival? It's a deep question, I know.
It's deep. I wasn't expecting to go that deep. Oh my.
Go on, Mark.
Geez, a few years back, I was almost 5 years ago now. Wow, time flies. I lost a bunch of people back to back to back. I lost one of my oldest friends. Then I lost my best friend to suicide. Then I lost my grandmother. And it was all within the span of just like a few months. And to be honest, like, this is my truth, but my partner was working very hard on his education, which I will not shame him for, but just was not there for me in the way that I needed somebody. And I got very, very depressed. And when I was going through that, I was trying to find ways to make myself come out of that headspace because it was very dangerous. I felt how deep of a depression I was in. And I was like, I can't stay here. I can't live in this place. And so I started just marathon watching Star Trek and like listening to Star Trek podcasts. I discovered All Good Things podcast with Miss Amy Nelson. And like, I don't know how the heck, like, I think I found her online and ended up becoming friends with Amy and then getting introduced to, other people, and then started podcasting, and then finding that family through Star Trek, through podcasting, and through a very gay Star Trek community that she seems to associate herself with, which made it very comforting for me, and I felt very safe, and it helped to propel me beyond that point and get me through that point, and made me stronger because I have these new friends. And it's difficult. I think a lot of people that are listening to the pod, if you're older than 25, if you're in your 30s or 40s or older, that as you grow older, it's much harder to make friends because it's not like, hey, you want to come over and play Legos? It's like you can't really have these moments that you can have when you're a kid. It's a lot harder. And a lot of people have lives. They have wives or husbands, and they have kids, and a lot of things where they can't get together, right? So it's very difficult to find people when you're older. So I consider myself very fortunate to have met Amy and to met so many people because of her. I'm eternally grateful, and it's helped me enormously.
I've got to say that I think just throughout my life, there were people that were kind of almost like purposefully put there to help me grow into the person that I was, the queer person that I was. I think my youth pastor was very, very helpful in the beginning. I remember the first boy that I had kissed, I had called my youth pastor in a panic. I was freaking out, and I thought I was going to hell and all this and that. And he was the person that like calmed me down on the phone. He's like, "Did you like it?" I was like, "Yes." He was also queer, queer himself. He just wasn't out in church because, obviously, I had my my cousin Margaret, who was just the ultimate listener as I was coming out. Someone that I used to be very good friends with, helped me to go to my first gay bar, helped me muster up the courage to go to my first gay bar, and that has been my home away from a home for 13 years now. So, I've definitely had some extended family in one way or another be there and be very present in helping me to make this journey and being comfortable with who I am, and I'm very grateful for that.
Those are both really, I mean, there's some rawness in the examples you both just gave, which I really love, and it's why I wanted to ask this question, because I feel like it relates so much to those themes of found family in the movie. And the funny thing is when I wrote this question into the script, I thought I knew what I was going to say, and then listening to your stories made me realize I have so many more examples of my found and chosen family. My kind of group of friends here in Melbourne who I found when I moved here 6 years ago, like these characters in the show. I mean, we're all connected through the community, but we're all so different. And we are ranging in age as well. Like in our kind of immediate social group, we've got everyone from 25 through to 40. Unfortunately, I'm the oldest, but you get that. And
you're the Bernadette of the group.
Yeah, I'm totally the Bernadette of the group. Yeah, they actually say I'm the mum of the group because I'm always organizing and doing all the cooking and all that kind of stuff. But all of them are just the most wonderful, beautiful souls, and they all know who they are. They were all at my 40th, and we're all different. Some of us are big sci-fi nerds. Some of us are sports nuts. Some of us are muscle gym junkies. Some of us are, skinny little twinks and genderqueer, and we are literally everything, but we all... you know what I mean? In high school, we may have had nothing to do with each other, but now as adults, as chosen found family, we are just one and we just get each other. And that group of people have just been there for me in some really, really dark times. Whether it be during a broken heart, which I've had a few of over the years, or after the very sudden and unexpected death of my sister last year, everyone was just there and they knew how to be there, and it's always so instinctive, right? It never feels, when it's your found family, when they're there for you, it never feels forced, because they know you well enough to know what you're going to need and when. And I think to what Mark was talking about as well, Mark, you made me think about my Star Trek family as well, and my podcasting family. In 2016, or 2015, I went to my first STLV, whatever the first 50th anniversary year was. And I remember getting there, and I was not prepared for just how gay that convention was going to be.
Yes.
But it was...
Are there straight Star Trek fans? I'm just asking our listeners. If you're straight and you're a Star Trek fan, please reach out, because I'd love to meet one.
We'll start a support group for you, yes. But there's... I remember sitting there I was so drunk most of the time as well, and I was having a bit of a moment, and I was like, Star Trek used to be this thing that was that kept me on the outside. Yet here I am with thousands of people from all over the world who love it just as much as I do. And guess what? I found my tribe. And it's turned into a beautiful, beautiful community, a global community who have got me through lockdowns and all kinds of stuff. So
now you've felt it on the inside, and it's tight.
If you're doing the exercises
that
you need to do, if you're doing the exercises you need to do, that can happen.
Yeah,
indeed.
You can make use of that ping pong ball.
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
Well, thank you for that. Was a really touching moment, I think, to share those stories. But I think now we should have a little bit of fun, because I've been so excited for this next segment, which is our director's cut segment, where we get to replay some favorite scenes and act out our favorite moments. Now, what a great movie to do this to. I know I kind of had to pick 4 scenes, and they kind of cross between some scenes because it is just such a quotable movie. And some of that banter that you were talking about earlier, Matt, is just so perfectly executed. So we're going to have some fun with our first scene, which is Adam, Tick, and Bernadette. Right when Bernadette's has said, "All right, cool, I'll go to Alice Springs. It's going to be a great time for the 2 of us." And Tick's like, "Actually, no, it's the 3 of us." And then Adam is introduced to Bernadette. So, who would like to play Adam, Tick, or Bernadette?
Matt should be Adam.
You want to be Adam?
I'll be. I try to remember what was the tone. What was the tone in the song, or the song that he was? Was it to a specific? Was it to another song?
Holiday, let's pack the drag away.
That's what I thought it was. I heard it in my head, but I wasn't sure. Okay.
All right. Well, I'll be Bernadette, since we just said that I was the Bernadette of my group, and you can be Tick, Mark.
All right.
So,
all right,
Felicia, take it away.
Action.
A desert holiday, let's pack the drag away. You take the lunch and tea, I'll take the ecstasy. Fuck off, you silly queer, I'm getting out of here. A desert holiday, hip, 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 hooray!
Why?
Why not? Look, he's turned into a bloody good little performer.
That's right, a bloody good little performer. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I thought we were getting away from all this shit.
2's company, 3's a party, Bernadette, my sweet.
We're unplugging our curling wands and going bush, Felicia. Why would you possibly want to leave all this glamour for a hike into the middle of nowhere?
Do you really want to know?
Desperately.
Well, ever since I was a lad, I've had a dream that I now finally have a chance to fulfill.
And that is?
To travel to the center of Australia, to climb Kings Canyon as a queen in a full-length Gautier sequin heels and a tiara.
Great. That's just what this country needs. A cock in a frock on a rock.
I'll get back in your kennels, both of you. Now, the first thing we have to work out is how we're getting there.
Move to the city street. Adam climbs out of a silver bus.
Ta-da! What do you think?
When do we have to return it to the school?
We don't. We own it.
What?
I met some nice Swedish tourists called Lars, and coaxed it out of them for $10,000.
But we can't afford it.
Well, that's right.
Adam grabs a bottle of champagne and looks at it admiringly.
Mummy, maybe take a trip to the Outback. Would you help me get over this little phase I'm going through? I hereby christen this budget Barbie camper Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Smashes the bottle on the rhubarb of the bus. That's got to be the understatement of the century.
Cut.
Sorry, that was a long one, but I was like, I need to do both parts of this.
It's too fun.
Dear. Well, our next scene is right after the bus has broken down in the middle of the desert. Now, do we want to stay as the same characters?
Let's switch it up.
Switch it up.
Yeah. Who wants to take on Bernadette this time?
I think I want to be Bernadette.
You want to be Bernadette? All right.
Yes.
I'll be Adam. Oh, no, I'll be Tick, and Mark, you be Adam.
Okay.
Action.
Well, I've had a look around, and I think we can safely assume that I now know less about motor cars than I did when I first lifted up that bonnety thing.
Now what?
Let's just not think about it for the moment and eat breakfast, shall we?
That's a novel idea. Let's stuff ourselves to death. Imagine the headlines. Whales beach themselves in the Outback. Mystery broomsticks dead in drag.
There's no point in walking back. The only life I saw for the last 1,000,000 miles, we were hypnotized bunnies, and most of them were wedged in my tires.
Somebody's sure to drive past. We'll keep the fire burning.
Yes, and toast a marshmallow for when they arrive. What if they don't drive past?
Look, you're not helping here. Just eat your hormones.
Hell, why don't we stick to the main road?
What difference does it make now?
You got us into this Antony Belarus, and I suggest you start thinking about how to get us back, or I don't fancy your chances of ever trying to be a husband again. Jesus, what are we going to do?
We're going to start off with a facelift. Nothing like a new frock to brighten up your day.
Move to the camp, and Adam is painting the bus. Purple?
It's not purple. It's lavender. What do you think?
It's nice, in a hideous sort of way. Bernadette jumps out of the bus in her walking heels and heads towards the road. Where are you going?
If you think I'm going to sit around watching Picasso take on the public transport system, you've got another thing coming. I'll be back with the cavalry in a couple of hours. Cut.
I love that Bernadette is literally just sitting there eating hormones for breakfast in that scene.
That is a big bowl of pills.
Settle down, Bernadette. Eat your hormones.
There's like this Golden Girls energy between the three of them that I love.
Yes,
so
and there's lots of scenes where like Bernadette and Felicia are just arguing in the background, and I watched it with the subtitles on the other night, and you can just see that like she's like, "Oh fuck off, Grandma! Shut up, you little twit!" Like, but it's like happening in the background. It's not even part of the main story.
I love it.
All right, we're moving on to a more serious scene now. So this is right after the drive-in, where Frank, from one of the miners, was obviously disgusted by Felicia. So this scene has Frank, Bob, Bernadette, and Tick. So we will need someone to double up. So who's going to be the big butch Frank?
Who's Butch? Who's the most mask out of all of us? Who's
That's
mask
got to be
for
you,
mask?
right?
That voice. Matt Jennings.
Yeah.
All right. Wait, who? Who is it?
You'll be
Let's be-
Frank.
Frank.
I'll be Bob.
You'll be Bob. I'll be Bernadette and Tick then, because Tick doesn't say too much in this, so that's fine.
Action.
Get off of me, you mongrel. He was joking, okay? Now you leave that bugger alone.
Get out of here, Bob.
Cut it out, Frank.
Get the fuck out of the way, Bob, or you'll be next.
Frank!
Get out of there.
Oh, stop flexing your muscles, you big fucking pile of budgie turd. I'm sure your mates would be much more impressed if you just went back to the pub and fucked a couple of pigs on the bar.
Bernadette, please.
Well, I'll be darned. A whole bloody circus is in town. I suppose you want to fuck too? Come on, Bernadette. Come on and fuck me. That's it. Come on. Come on and fuck me.
Bernadette suddenly knees Frank in the balls, and Frank falls to the ground in agony. There. Now you're fucked. Back in the hotel room, Tick says, "You stupid bloody idiot. Drugs, for Christ's sake. Well, 3 cheers for you. I hope you're bloody well happy now. Stupid bloody fuckwit." Adam begins to cry, and Bernadette sidles over to him. "It's funny. We all sit around mindlessly slagging off that vile stinkhole of a city. But in its strange way, it looks after us. I don't know if that ugly wall of suburbia has been put up to stop them getting in or us getting out. Come on. Don't let it drag you down. Let it toughen you up. I can only fight because I've learnt to. Being a man one day and a woman the next is not an easy thing to do."
Cut.
Oh my god, you guys are both putting me to shame. I think I blame the cocktail, because I'm drinking the most, so that's why my acting's suffering tonight. Usually the listeners, I mean, they know. I'm usually on top of things.
Yeah, you got to know how many times I've seen this film as well. Like I've got all the inflections. All right, our final scene is one of the touching scenes towards the end, where Tick is with Marion, his wife, and we also have Adam and Benji having a connection in the hotel as well. So we've got Tick, Marion, Adam, and Benji. So
Marion.
who would like to? You're going to take Marion. What about yourself, Matt? You haven't. I don't think you've done Tick yet.
I don't think I've done Tick yet, no.
All right. Do you want to double up as well and do Adam, and I'll do Benji because they're in a separate scene. So
Sure.
you'll do Tick and Adam.
Okay. Action. Oh, shit, what are you doing, Marion?
Oh, shush. Drink your daiquiri.
I hate bloody daiquiri.
No, you don't. You love bloody daiquiri. least now I know why drag queens drink from such big glasses to make their hands look smaller.
Oh, what am I meant to say to the boy? I've never been so embarrassed.
I think you're overreacting.
Really?
Yeah, you're just being a drama queen. You're gonna have to drop all that shit if you're gonna be a good father. Don't pretend to be surprised. I kept my end of the bargain. Now it's your turn. Not forever. Maybe just a couple of months.
Why now?
Because I haven't had a holiday in 8 years. I just need a rest tick. I need some space.
That reminds me of something I said not too long ago.
Well, I do. And besides, it's time we get to know what his father was anyway.
That's the problem. I mean, I don't know what to tell him. What do you assume I do? Lie?
Assumption, my dear Mitzi, is the mother of all fuck-ups. Don't bitch to me. Bitch to him.
Thanks for the free advice.
We move into Adam's room. What's the matter?
Nothing. Do you know what your father does for a living?
Yeah.
So I suppose you know he doesn't really like girls.
Does he have a boyfriend at the moment?
No.
Neither does Mum. She used to have a girlfriend, but she got over her. Do you want to come and come to my room? I've got Lego.
Sure. Cut.
Oh my god!
What, you liked my
casting.
The simplicity. I mean, that scene. The moment between Adam and Benji. Is it Benji or just
Benji? Yeah, it is Benji. Yeah.
The simplicity in that scene. It's just because there's so much. There's so much weight around. Tick and how am I going to talk to my son? And, I'm going to dress a certain way. And, and the little dialogue here, it's like Benji gets it. He gets it. And it doesn't bother him. He's like, okay, let's go play with Legos now.
Yeah.
It's
little kid in the Outback. Yeah.
So simple.
One of my favorite things about this film actually is the dynamic between father and son here, because in most films, it's going to be like the kid's going to be like really scared to come out to the father.
Yeah.
But here, it's like the kid's cool. Like, whatever. He grew up around like a nightclub anyway and has seen it all and whatever. And the father is very afraid to come out to his son. And the son sort of helps him through that. And even beforehand, Tick is all trying to dress differently and act more masculine and not showing that side of himself to his son. He won't even do like the game of charades and all this because he doesn't want to come across as like, gay to his son, when all along his son's totally cool with it. And the more he starts learning that through spending time with his son, you watch his heart open up. It's like a whole experience through that film. And I love that they flipped the traditional story on its head with making the kid being like the accepting one and the father like almost putting himself back in the closet because he's afraid of what his son would think. And that was really original and unique to this particular film. And I loved that.
And something that really got to me too is there's a moment when they perform the drag show at the casino, and they look around and everyone's kind of like doing a slow clap, but you can hear the mother in the background, Bob in the back, and they're applauding, and Benji is like applauding the loudest and the hardest.
Yeah,
and that made me. I almost lost it. When I saw that, I almost started crying. It was just,
Yeah. And as you were saying, like the scene that we were just doing and how that kind of gave the audience a different perspective of Adam, how the character who just relishes in making everyone else uncomfortable is all of a sudden, just because of he sees this acceptance in this young boy and the softer side of him that comes out as a result of that. And then you kind of see, you can kind of assume that, well, Benji's now going to have multiple father figures in his life as a result of having a gay dad. And you see this little relationship, and it's not huge, but you see it depicted even in the way that Benji and Adam are playing together on the bus on the way home, that there's this cute little friendship that has started there. And you see how he's actually really, he's this larger than life, crude character, but great with kids, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is another thing that this film did so well, right? Because even still today and in the 90s, gay people around kids, like, that because everyone saw our lives as so sexualized that we're obviously going to corrupt children if we get anywhere near them. There was even if there were gay teachers, it seemed to be a problem. But like, no, we're just people. We're just people, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
So I think you kind of said earlier, Mark, that there's probably not a lot that you would rewrite in this film, but let's just cover it off anyway. Is there anything that you would change, and what would it be, and why?
We touched on it a little bit earlier, but the Filipino character, does she represent a person that exists in the world? Probably. That person has to exist somewhere. But with that said, I feel like it's sort of almost like spoofing the culture a little bit and being very sort of racist by having that accent be comic relief and that kind of thing. It wasn't meant to be a serious character in the way that she freaks out. She seems to have some sort of mental issues, like when she's eyeballing the cabinet and then goes up with the knife or whatever.
I noticed
I'm like,
that
wow,
too. I thought there was more going
an
on
unhinged
there.
person.
Someone that needs help.
Yeah, and it just seemed to be like, okay, we're going to take this person of color and we're going to make them the joke in this movie, and we're going to make them the psychopath and them the unhinged person. And I just felt like that was a little cringy, and I'd probably change that. I feel like there was a way to do the character and have it be similar, but a little more nuanced and a little less cartoony.
Yeah. There is a part of us, there is a thing in Australian culture where, and I know this character was Filipino, as you said, but it's very common for Australian middle-aged white straight men to disappear to Thailand or Vietnam or something like that and come back with a young wife. It is quite a common thing in Australian culture. You go to Thailand and you'll see a lot of bars filled with older Australian men surrounded by the Thai women. But that being said, they still chose to depict that character in a very cliched, racist way. Yeah. Which is why I assumed she was Thai, because the ping pong show thing is a very Thai thing.
Yeah,
so
it's just
who knows?
The only reason I say she's Filipino is because of the
subtitles.
The subtitles was just that it was Tagalog, which I'm butchering even the name of the language because I'm English and white. Yeah. But that's not how you pronounce it, but that's how I pronounce it. Apologies to the Filipino community.
Fair enough. What about you, Matt?
I think just taking off Mark's head, I think that character would be the only character that I would change. And I mean, just the representation, just people of color. That's all. That's really it, though. It is, I think, at the end of the day, just a celebration of a certain part of the queer community, and I love it. I love it.
Matt, do you think that the movie would have been enhanced a little bit if they got to the middle of the film, they had the sing-along with the Aboriginal community, and then that one that had put on the dress and joined them had continued through the movie as picked up the last character?
That could have been fun.
I mean, that would have been great. I mean, should there be a reboot? Unfortunately, because nothing is sacred in Hollywood. Should there be a reboot? That is the story. That's a story to tell,
Yeah.
Because this film is so important to me, I don't think that there's much I would change. But I one bit of trivia that I will call out ahead of the trivia section, which I found really fun. So Julia Cortez, who played Cynthia, the Bob's wife, the only other role I could find for her was that she portrayed Rita Repulsa in the original Power Rangers movie, which was because it was filmed in Sydney, and so it's not even her voice in that. Like she portrays it, and then whoever did the voiceover for the TV show,
someone else, right?
Yes,
that's her.
Yeah.
Wow.
Weird.
Yeah. That blew my mind.
Oh my gosh.
You know what her superpower is.
Dear.
We never got to see Rita Repulsa really do what she can do.
No.
We never got to see the ping pong balls in action.
So any final standouts that you think we haven't covered? I know we've talked a lot.
Oh my goodness. I have to throw this out there about the cinematography of this film. So many really interesting choices. I think that one thing that comes to mind, obviously, is when the queens are, there's multiple times where one of the queens is walking sort of alone in the desert, and you see the vastness of the desert, and you see them traversing the landscape in whatever gown they're wearing, whatever. So that in itself is very beautiful. But also the lights and darks of the camp scenes where the blacks are very black and it's a very intimate shot, but you can see all that's sort of happening. Like, I just sort of love how they filmed it, and some of the artistic choices that was done with the cinematography I thought were outstanding.
I think for me, I always love the scenes where Adam is sitting, on the giant heel on top of the bus.
Yes.
And he's practicing a number. That's always hilarious to me. He always had this extravagant outfit on. There was one particular shot where he's wearing like a silver metallic, I don't know, and it's like, and there's just a long train that's just flowing behind him on the bus, and I thought that was beautiful. I love that. Overall, the cast, I mean, Hugo Weaving, from Agent Smith, as I think
V for Vendetta.
V for Vendetta. Those are my exposures to Hugo Weaving. Agent Smith was first because of The Matrix, but that was my exposure to him. So to see him, I guess first in this, wild. Guy Pearce. Oh, what's the name of the Bernadette, the actor that plays Bernadette?
That is Terence Stamp.
He was phenomenal as well. Also, he was in episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Oh.
Yeah, and also did the voice of Superman's father in Smallville.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I loved it. I love it. I might go watch it again. But I love that movie.
They did breathe life into these queer characters in a way that felt authentic and not spoofy or making fun of the queer community, which would have been very easy to do.
And I was looking for it. I'll be honest. I was looking for it because I knew that the actors were straight, and I was looking at what they were pulling from and the nuances, the physical work. I was like, are you pulling from,
They grew up going and participating in theater, and so they were around queers. All of them have been around queers. They had to have been to portray these characters. Yeah.
I will say, as a final thought, if you get the chance, go and see if you can find the documentary from 2015 called Between a Frock and a Hard Place, which is actually narrated by Terence Stamp, which is it's all about the making of the film and the struggles they had to make the film.
So excited.
It's really,
Why didn't
really
you tell
good.
us before we recorded, asshole? I would have watched it.
I would have watched that now.
Where is it?
Yeah, but I'm not too sure where it's streaming in the US.
All right, I'm
but you'll have to,
I gotta find it.
Yeah.
So Between a Frock and a Hard Place.
Okay.
And Terence talks about just how relentlessly Stephan Elliott was like, no, I need you to be. He did not want to do it, right? And there's something in the trivia later that kind of talks to why he maybe did not want to do it, but at the same, and now he's like, I'm so glad I did. But just everything from the inspiration to the film to how because you talked about how beautiful the cinematography it is. It was shot very, very quickly. Like, it was all done in a matter of weeks, I think. So
You'd think that they scouted for like a year beforehand for some of these shots because they're set up so beautiful. And even if you just, listeners, if you just Google the damn trailer, they have some of those shots in the trailer, and you're like, wow, like this looks like a bigger budget than they had, clearly.
Yeah. So speaking of trivia about the film, let's do the trivia section now. So I'm going to start with the first one. So, you know, I just talked about the heavy filming schedule. So due to that, lots of filming was done while the entire crew was on the road. But because the bus was such a small set, there was no room for the crew. As such, in many scenes, the crew are actually in the shots. They're just hiding under piles of clothes and other props in the bus.
I love it. I love that.
That is amazing.
As of 2024, this is still the most recent contemporary set film to win the Academy Award for Best Costume Design.
Wow.
Yeah, so something that was not fantasy or science fiction. And, you know, it won it for... So, you know, okay, you'd call them flip-flops, the dress where they come out of the bus.
Loved it.
It cost $7 to make.
Get out of here. No, it didn't.
It cost $7 Australian dollars in 1994. Might be more like $40 now, but still, yeah.
Oh my god!
I was getting RuPaul vibes though through this whole movie. I was thinking the same thing. This was so Drag Race.
It was very Drag Race.
It was drag.
20 years before Drag Race, but
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but it was elevated. This was like ideal top drag, and you know, on a dime. Like RuPaul has these challenges sometimes where they have to make drag out of various crap. And this is one of those things where they took the flip-flops and they elevated it and made it something else. Kind of like Monet Exchange did with the infamous sponge, which I actually like that dress. I'll die on that.
I don't know about the sponge. I gotta I have to see this.
Well, according to director Stephan Elliott, he got the idea for the film while seeing a plume of feathers break from a drag queen's headdress during Sydney's Mardi Gras parade and go tumbling down a deserted street like a tumbleweed in a Sergio Leone Western.
And as someone who spent many Mardi Gras festivals wandering down what's Sydney's Oxford Street after the parade at 4:00 in the morning, I can tell you I've seen many of those feathers and drag queen costumes floating down that street before the cleaners come along.
There is a scene in the film that has like a feather or something floating
in the desert. Yeah,
in the desert.
Yeah. I love this next one. So the town of Broken Hill is where the characters first encounter rural homophobia. And at the time, the town had that reputation in real life. After the popularity of this film, it has established its own annual drag festival, including a parade that passes by the hotel that the characters go drinking in. And that festival still goes today. It's called the Broken Heel Festival. And there are train. You can get on these trains from Melbourne, which will take you to Broken Hill for the festival, and drag queens will be performing on the trains and all. I haven't been, but it's supposed to be really fun.
Wow! So I guess a lot of the old homophobes have probably died or moved away.
Yes.
Well, that's good. That's what we call progress, girls.
Oh dear.
Listeners, as Mark sips his cocktail. Shady queen. According to director Stephan Elliott, he took the 3 leads out in drag prior to the beginning of filming. None of them was recognized. Guy Pearce took the opportunity to be outrageously rude. Terence Stamp eventually forgot he was in drag and started hitting on girls. And Hugo Weaving got super drunk and lay under a table for hours, tapping his finger in time to the music. This last detail was incorporated into the film in the hotel room scene. Oh, that is funny because I remember that. That is hilarious.
You can just picture it, can't you?
Yes. That's hilarious.
According to director, is it Stephan or Stephen?
I said Stephan.
Stephan. According to director Stephan Elliott, when they were ready to shoot the scene, when Felicia, Guy Pearce, stands on the roof of the bus in a silver gown, there was no wind at first. Then suddenly a great wind came up, only 45 minutes, thus allowing the scene to be shot.
Those moments, can't duplicate them.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Something that trivia reminds me of is talking about the film that we had covered previously, Dead Man. The filmmakers and the behind the scenes stuff that I watched were talking about how they would just use these moments that were real life sort of like weather moments or what have you, and just find a way to incorporate in the film. Okay, like it's raining now. All right, let's try shooting it in the rain. Let's try shooting it in the wind. Okay, it's not windy. So I think it's cool when they do that, when they don't just wait for perfection, when they sort of go ahead with it, or when timing sort of lines up. So I think that was really cool.
Yeah, and even the opening scenes when they're in the bus, it's raining, which it probably was just a rainy day, and it gave an awesome opportunity for Bernadette to like very dramatically open an umbrella and stuff like that. So
yeah,
you just make do of it. Final piece of trivia. So back when the film was released, and I touched on this earlier, certain actors, especially in Hollywood, and producers clung to the belief that playing a gay character on screen would basically be committing career suicide. However, all three of the lead actors proved this wrong by going on to greater success in mainstream Hollywood blockbusters. And, Guy Pearce and Hugo Weaving in particular, just absolute Aussie treasures in terms of the work they've done on Australian film and television, and the work they've done internationally in Hollywood too. So
absolutely
love them.
Guy Pearce has to be a little bit I'm just saying, because I've also listen, I saw him play Andy Warhol as well. So I don't know, like he was pretty good as Warhol too. He's believable in those roles, and I just feel like there's going to be a little bit of flexibility there. Mm-hmm.
Don't get my hopes up, Mark. Don't get my hopes up.
Well, I mean, it always comes back to me that sometimes I think that Australian film and the talent that comes out of Australian film is sometimes underappreciated in the broader kind of international context. Because, I get a bit of national pride here, but we have produced some of Hollywood's finest actors. Hugo Weaving, Cate Blanchett, Hugh Jackman, Nicole Kidman, all of... we don't own Mel Gibson, though, even though allegedly he may. Russell Crowe is from New Zealand when it suits us. But so, any final thoughts before we end up today's amazing discussion?
So what are we giving out? Are we giving out jars of face cream, or are we giving out vials of ABBA poo?
Woe man for the more what was it? The more industrial woman or something like that. I love when he's drunk in the bar in Broken Hill and he's like, don't charge any money, okay?
Well, I like the fact that when the camera pans over to the two people he's sitting with, it looks like they have jizz all over their face.
Yeah.
It just looks like a lot of jizz.
just cocky.
I even do laugh where Cynthia goes to pour it on top of goes to pour it in the coffee. He's like, oh, we have cream? He's like, no, for face.
They put it in the engine of the damn bus, too.
He does. Oh. He just puts it all over the bus when it breaks down. Dear. Well...
So, for this, I guess... Because we've been talking about face cream, I guess I'll give out face cream. So I'm going to give out 4.5 jars of face cream for this. I think it only gets dinged from the racist Filipino woman. Well, she wasn't racist, but the character.
The betrayal was. Yeah.
The betrayal was. But aside from that, it's a near perfect film that I feel like should be shown to school children of any age.
I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5 again, just for the one character that was depicted. But I love this movie. I fell in love with this movie.
Show it to your dad.
Knowing him, he probably already saw it. My dad has probably already seen it. I'll have to ask him next time I call him on the phone.
Love you, Lawrence. Miss you. Call me. He stopped. He stopped returning my calls. But
anyway. God. Oh.
If you have any friends, queer community or otherwise, in the US who have not seen this, go like, I've got this great Australian film to show you. You are going to love it.
Hands down.
Look, despite problematic portrayals, the importance of this film to me gives it 5. To be honest, and what it means to me personally. My story before about having had my exposure to drag in the same pub that this the opening scenes for this movie was shot in. It's just got such a special place in my heart. Love it, love it, love it. Right, so Mark, what have we got coming up next time?
Well, I don't actually know. So next week, maybe we're probably watching Empire Records with a special guest, Joe Keegan of the UK. So it's accent week back to back to back. So Joe Keegan, you guys might know, has been a host of Galaxy Class on the BQN network for a very long time. And now, I don't know what he's doing. But he is coming on this pod, and you guys will probably love him. He is very funny. And Empire Records is a 1995 American coming-of-age drama film directed by Alan Moyle. The film follows a group of record store employees over the course of an exceptional day. The employees try to stop the store from being sold to a large chain and learn about each other along the way. This is a film that I saw in college, really enjoyed. It's a cult classic, and if you guys haven't seen it, I'm looking forward to you guys watching it and letting me know your thoughts. Have you guys seen it?
No, I know of it. I have not.
Not for a long time. I can't remember it very well. I know I have seen it. I will say, though, Joe, if you are listening, whilst technically part of the United Kingdom, I know you identify as a man from Scotland. He'll take issue with that. Dear, amazing. And dear listeners, we would love to hear your thoughts on today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group, The BQN Collective, to continue our discussion there. You can also send your thoughts to @CinemaZPod on Twitter and Blue Sky, and let us know if you'd like to recommend a film. Please follow the BQN Network on Twitter, Blue Sky, or Instagram @BQN Podcasts. Don't forget as well, you can join in the conversation with BQN hosts and fellow fans on our Discord server as well. We'll pop an invite link in the episode description. So, Matt, where can people find you when you're not retrieving a microphone from your own ass?
Well, I say subscribe to my OnlyFans. You'll see that and so much more. So when I'm not doing that, you can find me on Instagram, on TikTok, and on YouTube on @1701BLERD. I wrote a web series about a black nerd that sees his life like a Star Trek episode, and I dropped my 3rd episode last week, or 2 weeks ago now. So please watch it. Davey himself makes a cameo in the episode. So go see it. Watch it on YouTube at @1701BLERD. Mark, where can people find you when you are not projectile shooting ping pongs from your rectum?
I'm trying to make the noise. Pop, pop.
Yeah, close enough.
Pop, 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 pop. Oh, I didn't know I could fit too many up there. Wow, that's great.
He can do it to a song too. He can do it on beat, listeners.
Absolutely. I have talent. I have raw talent. Anyway.
Oh, God.
When I'm not doing that, you guys can find me. I'm on Blue Sky. Usually I share music on there, sometimes pictures of my dog. I'm here. I'm in the BQN Collective Facebook group. And occasionally I'm subscribing to Matt's OnlyFans. But yeah. Okay.
He's a supporter. Thank you.
I believe in you. And so, Davey, where can people find you when you are not crossing the desert in a frock, holding a jar of Vegemite?
I love you, Davey. I apologize. I love you, Davey. You're loved.
The
this is
cultural
a safe space.
insensitivities I put up with on this show, honestly.
This is a safe space.
You slap me one of these days.
Look, when I am not just slathering myself in Vegemite, I can be found hosting my other two shows on the BQN, the Trexperts Quiz, which is my number one and first show, the Star Trek game show, and also on the Bargain Bin Gamer, which is a YouTube series and also a Twitch streaming channel. You can also find my creative writing exploits over on davyrights.com, and during Discovery Season 5's run, I am hosting the BQN program Let's Fly, which is a post-Discovery chat show, which all of our patrons, so all of our paid patron members, no matter what level, are welcome to join in on those live broadcasts. So check that out over on the BQN Podcasts YouTube channel. Please hit the subscribe button on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a star rating and written review. That helps others to find the show. You can also follow the entire network's podcast with our master feed by searching BQN.
We thank our associate producers, Amy Nelson, and with us right here, Davey Lillett, and Las Marquez for our original show art. This podcast opening and closing music is Dancing Dead, provided by Ketsa from the Free Music Archive, which provides royalty-free music for content creatives.
If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. We'll add you to the Hive Mind Facebook group so you can enjoy It's Green, Amy's Math Moments, our monthly roundtable, and now take part in our Star Trek Discovery recaps and other network perks. With a monthly subscription of just $5 or more, you can join our meetings of the Hive Mind Roundtable discussion on the second Saturday of each month. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details, and you better watch those messages.
Thank you all so much for indulging us today and listening along.
We hope you'll tune in next time.
I'm going to go practice ping pong later.
I have to share this because it happened to me. So I had a dream last night where I don't know why, but I was at some sort of party and Patrick Stewart was there. Patrick Stewart always shows up in my dreams, but I walked up to him and he was like, "Oh, I absolutely love Cinema Z," and that blew. I kid you not. That was my dream. It was the weirdest thing. And then I woke up.